Let me clear that off my screen. Welcome, everybody. This is the second meeting we've had this year, and I think we need to have more, so I'd like some feedback on that. Having access to Zoom makes this a lot easier. So one of the things that I did before the meeting got going was throw a couple of things in the agenda at the top. I want to welcome everybody. I have a couple of quick things to say, and then we'll start rolling. If Matt Tyson shows up, then we'll talk to him, and then we'll roll over to Beth Haynes, who has a legislative update, and then we'll talk to Cameron Mattingly. So we do have a new Decoding Dyslexia Georgia website. We updated it over the summer, and with very little fanfare, in fact, none, because I know I have been going a million miles and I have a couple of little ticky things I need to fix in it, but that takes time and focus, which I am sorely lacking at the moment. I wanted to let you all know that the governor's office reached out to me to ask that we take a seat at the English Language Arts Standards Citizens Review Committee. The state is undergoing a review, which they do every 5 or 6 years, of the English Language Arts standards in our K-12 schools. And the result will be hopefully some changes to the standards that currently exist. What I did was printed them out, and I was a poll worker yesterday and I went through some of them. I'm waiting to get our official paperwork about what we're going to be reviewing and looking at, but needless to say, it is interesting that the balanced literacy point of view and language is baked into our standards already. So it is going to be a challenge for us to take a seat at the table. I have no idea with whom I will be a citizen, but needless to say, I think it's important that we've been invited, and that was very kind of the governor's office to do that. One of the things that I did in the past couple of months was listen to a webinar or presentation by Dr. Louisa Moats, who you all may be familiar with. She has a relationship with Decoding Dyslexia Idaho, and they invited us to meet with her. She is no longer taking public appearances and decided to speak to us, which was very gracious. Her recommendation of action to us as states is to write a letter to What Works Clearinghouse's director, a fellow named Matthew Soldner, who is in Washington, D.C. And of course, many of you may have run into this kind of catch-22 about the What Works Clearinghouse saying that certain products, curricular products, work. But in fact, the fact of the matter is that those don't necessarily work. Faunus and Pinnell, a school point to you saying, hey, Faunus and Pinnell is in, the level of literacy intervention is in the What Works Clearinghouse, but you don't necessarily know what the word alphabetics means, and it doesn't score well in alphabetics. And so I drafted a letter and sent it to Dr. Soldner at the end of last week. Yeah, I sent it at the end of last week. And he has responded, and we are going to discuss that in the future and figure out what will, I hate saying this too many times, what the What Works Clearinghouse needs to be addressed, because families are being impacted directly by what's in it for their students. So tomorrow is a state Board of Education meeting, and I plan to go to that. And then I I have gotten word that at the end of November, the state board rule on dyslexia, we will be discussing again. It got tabled because there were some things that were not quite right with it, including the fact that dyslexia is now the only disability listed within the SST rule. And so we need to have another conversation with stakeholders about what the rule needs to look like so that it can be most effective for students getting help in our schools. With that, I'm going to turn over to Beth Haynes, who is our legislative chair, and she'll catch us up on a meeting that we had a couple of months ago with Vice Chairman of the Senate Education Committee, Jason Navatarte.
Hey, everybody. Real quick, I'll go over a brief legislative history for anybody who's unfamiliar, although I think most of you probably are. But it was 2 years ago in 2019 that we got the first dyslexia bill passed in Georgia. Passed in March, the General Assembly, and then Governor Kemp signed it into law in May. And it required a pilot program for screening, identification, and intervention for struggling readers, as well as a dyslexia handbook. And then last year, well, in that bill, it only provided $100,000 to fund SB 48, which was clearly not enough. So last year we worked on getting a little bit more money for that. And luckily, well, we've written a letter and then COVID hit and everything stopped. But this year, Senator Elena Parent put in a budget request, and the long and short of it is that we got it. So we now have $1.6 million to fund SB 48 for fiscal year 2022. I don't know if we were going to go into any updates on the pilot. We don't have anything too concrete, but I sat in on a meeting, and Megan, I know you were there last week, where Decatur City Schools was talking about what they're doing. And I was thrilled to see and hear that the things that they're doing and using are much better than what they originally put on their application to be in the pilot. So that's promising. And then the meeting that Tina referenced with Vice Chair Navatarte was positive. He expressed his continued interest in working to improve literacy in Georgia and to get to the root of the problem that we have for dyslexics and struggling readers here. He discussed a Bill of Rights for IEP, for parents to read with regard to IEP, but we've discussed that that's basically IDEA. And his intent was great. He wants to put it somewhere everybody can find it. But I mean, that's kind of the struggle that's been going on for a while. But he also plans to introduce a bill that requires the dyslexia handbook in Georgia to be searchable and on every district's webpage. So that's good. But I think the most exciting part was that he kind of, not frustration with the Board of Education, but he expressed that he wants a little bit more action in this area from the Board of Education and the Department of Education. So he asked for our input on the top 5 questions that he thinks we could ask the Department of Education to get the ball rolling to start fixing this problem. So as we are putting together our response, we'll probably send out something on either the Facebook page or however our communications department sees best, just to get everybody's thoughts. If you have a question that you think would really hit hard and get people thinking and understanding the depth of this, we would love to hear it and maybe incorporate it into our response. I think that's all I had, Tina. Is there anything else that you?
No, that's great. I think that one of the things that we need to discuss with, well, I sensed that from Senator Navatarte that there is a level of frustration. And I think that with the influx of so much federal money coming into our schools, now is a real honest opportunity for schools to make a difference. I really do. Now, Lauren, you just sent me something. Okay, this is what the cab is doing. What is System 32?
Okay, hold on. What I just got a message of, or I should probably get the photos back. Hold on, you guys. I can get the photo or copy it. What it is that one of my moms in Region 2 in Tucker, Oak Grove specifically, she has two girls or two. She's the mom that has twins. One's at Howard, one's about to be screened at Oak Grove.
Right.
You're so happy with me. She just sent me a screenshot of moms moms saying that they're drilling kindergarten kids with 25 25 sight words a month. So there's that.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So that's just like on the heels of the dyslexia legislation, as you're speaking of, pilot districts and all the good things. They're not following the rules.
Yeah.
The other thing.
Let's see. So is anybody in the waiting room?
Nope.
Okay. Well, Matt Tyson asked to speak. I wanted to just let you know that he is the principal of Tapestry Charter School that is in Doraville. It's part of the charter schools that are in DeKalb County, but he is in the process of deciding whether or not to expand into either Fulton County, and he would consider doing a north and south because of the geography of Fulton County, or one within Atlanta Public Schools. So if any of you know families who are interested in 6th through 12th grade education through a charter, Tapestry is a very interesting place. I happened to visit when it was a teacher workday, so I didn't get to see the kids there, but half of the students have IEPs. It skews towards lots of learning disabilities, some autism, but they really value each child, and astonishingly enough, they have 100% graduation rate. And they also offer AP classes, which is extraordinary for a school with such a high special needs population, because we know that with the right supports, our kids can be a part of greater curricular offerings. I want now to turn over to my friend Cameron Mattingly, who is from Jessup, Georgia, and there's kind of this running theme that's kind of crept up over the last year and a half, 2 years. I've become convinced that all roads lead through Jessup, Georgia. Megan Swingle is from Jessup originally. Cameron's from Jessup. Mike Long, who's on the State Board of Education, who's working on our behalf, is also from Jessup. And our connection to the governor's office is also from Jessup. So we are blessed to have Cameron join us this evening. And I can't wait to hear what he has to share with you all, because he tells a very powerful story about his life. So run with it, Cameron.
All right, floor is mine. All right, well, I appreciate it. And you're down one speaker, so I might take extra time then. No, I'm kidding. First, I'm Cameron Mattingly from Jessup, Georgia. I was raised in Hinesville. I'm a military kid. So I was born in Stuttgart, Germany. And Dad got stationed at Fort Stewart and absolutely fell in love with the South. My whole family's from Cleveland, Ohio, mom's side and dad's side. But Dad got stationed in South Georgia and said, I am never shoveling snow again. I love this place. People are awesome and we're staying. So now me and my 3 brothers talk like this. And anytime we go back to Ohio, all our family just wants to listen to us talk. And it's kind of funny. I want to say first, I don't know what capacity and what role everybody on the call plays, right? I know some are very active. We just got an update on legislator from somebody. So obviously you've got some ownership and some responsibilities and some space. I want to thank you all for the work. I want to tell you that it's needed and that I appreciate it. So I'm going to share a little bit of my story, probably all my story. I'll try to do it in as entertaining as I can, so I don't bore you. But you know, pretty passionate about this space and have just recently started talking about it. Today, I work for the Coca-Cola Company. I'm a global executive, and I've been working in the Coke system for about 24 years. Inside the company, I manage our military business globally. So I take care of military installations all around the world, the sales and the logistics and export, procurement processes with DOD and FEMA, and managing some what we call new revenue streams, which is pretty cool. I'll get to some of that in a minute. But been working. It started as a part-time summer job, and I have absolutely no idea at what point I decided that this was a career. But I think it was about year 10 or 12 when I was supposed to be here for a couple of months, and now I've been there almost 24 years. It's kind of crazy. I tell people all the time that my plan was to go to college after the summer job, but they offered me good money, so I stayed. And that's a lie. I never decided. I was never going to go to college. I'll tell you all that. But I'm not really open about me and my secret, what used to be my secret. And until here recently. So I was diagnosed with dyslexia when I was in 3rd grade, and it was pretty profound. And I would say, you know, basically my whole experience through school just absolutely sucked. Just being real and transparent. Memories are basically getting pulled out of class 2 or 3 hours a day and going down the hall with kids that had other disabilities, with people that tried to help me, but they didn't know how. So I didn't get helped. But I knew that I was lagging behind my peers, right? Then middle school came along, and same thing. Like I would go down this hallway to the right to go to the special class, and all my friends would go left. So then it started getting kind of awkward, for sure. And then middle school, I can remember being in the assessment meeting, like, you know, you had to take the test, right, to see if it's still there, right? And I had to take the test, and now I'm in this assessment meeting. I remember going into my freshman year, and I begged my parents and begged counselors, like, please let me go to regular classes. Please don't make me go to some special class, right? Because I mean, chicks didn't dig it. And it was like, it was not okay. And I was not okay with it. They listened, and I can remember some counselors saying, you know, but he'll never make it. It won't work, blah, blah, blah. And quite honestly, I didn't really try. I was the kid that slept through class most of the day, or was out in the hallway hanging out with the janitor, or in the office talking to the parapros and stuff, just hanging out, meeting people. I graduated with I got a certificate of attendance when I walked, because I couldn't pass the high school graduation test, and I couldn't the equivalency test. Part of it I couldn't read. Part of it was that. Part of it was processing the stuff, and then part of it was just the retention of facts, and then some of it was I slept a bunch in class because I wasn't learning anything. And so there was that too. But eventually I went to some summer school stuff and took the test again a couple of times, and eventually got my high school diploma. I lied to Coke when they hired me. I told them I had one, but I didn't. I tell you all that to tell you that, I mean, the work you're doing, the people you're supporting, maybe your parents of children with dyslexia, right? The effort that you put into these kids right now matters, right? I didn't get taught how to advocate for myself. Didn't know what that was. Didn't know what accommodations were. I would say like expectations were really low, right? And I can remember, it's crazy. I can remember like report card day. I got 3 brothers. I was the only one diagnosed with dyslexia. I think one of my younger brothers is, but he never got tested. But my older brother was pretty much a high achiever. I mean, he was an AB student. And there was this running joke in my house that D stood for diploma for me. And I remember like getting benchmarked, but there was this lower expectation, right? Don't do that. I'm just saying, don't do that. And find those passion points that child or that student that you're supporting is whatever they're passionate about, and support that. School's gonna be tough, for sure, but with some good work that people are doing, like you all, things are changing, right? And people are listening, and that's good. But it's still not going to be easy, because there's some things that are still really hard for me today. I read my first book when I was 40. That was interesting. I'd gotten to a place where I was fed up with telling people, like, I didn't really tell people this, but I would be in circles of people, you know, did you read this book? This book's awesome, blah, blah, blah. And especially as my career started to progress and I was managing teams and you know, you're around high performing people, and they would reference like, you know, man, you should read this book. It's awesome. Like, yeah, it sounds good. And I'd never read them. And I got tired of saying that. So on my 40th birthday, like some people get tattoos or some people go skydiving or something, I read my first book and it was awesome. And I was really proud of myself. I went to work at Coke after graduation and I realized something, and I realize it now, especially looking back. I don't know that I knew what was happening. I'd always worked hard. Like I was raised with an entrepreneur dad who, when he got out of the military, started his auction business. And my grandfather's an auctioneer and they're in the antique business. And I knew what work was. Like I grew up during the summer working on a farm and I absolutely loved that. So when I got to work at Coke, I was just working, helping unload trucks, making $6 an hour, and just working, just showing up and working. But I didn't realize that I was learning and how much I was enjoying learning. It was very hands-on. I was being trained. I was learning an industry. It was high energy. I was interacting with people and I was thriving. I'm talking about excelling. And so that $6 an hour summer helper, you know, 20 years into my career, I was managing some government business for a small, the Coke system is pretty complex. Like there's independent bottlers all across the country. And here, I'll show you a map. I didn't plan on doing this, but I'll show this to you. This is a map of the US, and all those colors are different franchise territories. So if you think about the Coca-Cola Company that's in Atlanta, that's the corporate Coca-Cola Company, right? But in the US, there's all these independent Coca bottlers that hundreds of years ago bought territory to distribute Coke brands. And I was working for one of the largest in the Southeast at the time. And that family bought that franchise back when mule and wagon is the tools they were using to deliver. It was pretty interesting. So I'm working with them, been doing it almost 20 years, was managing government business, and some folks from Atlanta started to recruit me. And they started to recruit me to come in and help lead some global work. And they said things to me like, you're the handpick in the country. You're a subject matter expert. And I thought they were lying. I thought they were just like selling me something, you know, they were just courting me, trying to make me feel good. So I said no, I declined their offer, but I told them I'd help them hire somebody. And for about 7 months, I tried to help them hire somebody and we couldn't find anybody. And finally, I mean, it was kind of like, if you ever been in South Georgia near the coast, you know what a sand gnat is. And this job was kind of like a sand gnat. It was just flying around me and I couldn't get rid of it. And it was like this thing just nagging at me like, this is my job. Like I'm supposed to take this job. But what was happening was I was like hiding this kind of this fear, this thing like, you know, these corporate people, there's no way they want me. They don't know what I can't do. They don't know my secret is what was in the back of my mind. Right. And because at this point, I wasn't telling anybody I was dyslexic. I wasn't telling a soul. The second I got in the workforce and could hide and nobody could see it, I told no one. And I almost quit about 10 years into my career. And there was a training session and the instructor tried to get people to read out loud during the training. And it was a way, for like interaction, you know, or to keep people engaged in the room or whatever. And man, it terrified me every Friday. Like I almost quit, almost walked away from it, but I didn't. And so that was good. So they start recruiting me, right? And I tell them no, Finally, 7 months goes by and I say, yes, let's have a formal conversation. And in my first day at the Atlanta office, so I had an office when going to an office was a thing. In downtown Atlanta, in the tower on the 18th floor, looking over Georgia Tech. It was pretty cool. Hadn't seen it in a while. And but I walk in this building, and it was. I felt like, man, I felt like that 18-year-old kid again. Like I realized I started feeling some inspiration again because I had topped out with that bottler. I was on their corporate staff. I was flying on the private jet, doing things that you did at that level. But there wasn't really anywhere else for me to go. And I didn't realize I wasn't inspired, right? So I get to Coke, I'm looking, I'm like, man, this is awesome. You know, there's all these people. But I didn't realize how special that day was going to be. Doing a tour, and part of the tour that my boss put on was we went into the archives, Coke archives department. People ask me all the time, like, is there a vault at Coke where the recipe of Coke's locked up? You know, and I just kind of laugh and like, but there is. It's called our archives department, and it is amazing the history of the company that's in this huge, behind multiple locked doors and security and climate control, and it's like these filing cabinets that are as long as you can see with all this stuff. I mean, Coke menus and fountain equipment and just little trinket and this stuff that was, you know, the first glass bottle sketch on a piece of paper that was pencil sketched. The first glass bottle that was sketched, they have this. I mean, it's unbelievable what all the stuff. Some of these pictures, I don't know if you can see them in the back, are World War II art. And that's part of Coke's heritage story with the military, but all those were in archives. And so we're touring this. It's really cool. I'm learning all this stuff. And it was interesting. And the historian starts telling a story about Robert Woodruff. And he said, he started talking about Woodruff and his way to change the marketing campaign for the company. And his way he was able to communicate with people with images instead of words. And the way he was able to build sustainable relationships. And kind of he kept talking, and he said, what a lot of people don't understand is that a lot of his talents and his strengths are directly connected to what people believe is dyslexia. There's a lot of assumption that Robert Woodruff was dyslexic. And I'm sitting in the room and I hear this as I'm looking at oil paintings of his bird dogs, and something changed in me. Something clicked, and it was a different perspective, because for the first time in my entire life, and now at this point, I'm like, I was 30, 38. I had never heard anything positive about dyslexia. Like everything that I'd always heard was what I couldn't do. And in an instance, like I heard something, and I felt like a little, man, it was crazy. It was a shift happened. And man, you ever seen like a movie and the movie plays out, and then this scene happens, and all the stuff in the movie, like they go back and all the things come together in the movie, and it just all kind of connects and makes sense. I've seen that narrative kind of play out in this moment of my career, the things that happen, stuff that the steps, the thing, like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing, right? That night, I ran back to my hotel room after a quick team dinner, and I pulled out my computer and I started researching dyslexia. I started researching, like, the positives. And I came across an organization I'm sure all of you are familiar with, Made by Dyslexia, right? When one of my first Google searches. And I start watching these videos and hearing all this stuff. I'm calling my wife and I'm sending her links. And I'm like, you're not going to believe this. This is amazing. I was so stinking inspired. But I still kept a secret. I didn't tell anybody. But I went on this personal journey of research, and I became very self-aware of a lot of things. I healed a ton, to be honest. There was some junk, and I healed a ton from it. And then there was this contest, and at Coke they do a contest. It was called the Grand Challenge, and the concept around the contest is the big idea, and it's where they give associates the opportunity to submit their big idea, and I did with a partner. We had an idea. He called me. He said, "Hey, do you know about this contest?" I said, "No, what's the contest?" He told me about it. He said, "We need an idea for the military." I said, "I got an idea." I gave him the idea, and he's like, "Yeah, we need to do that." All right, well, let's do it. So we did it. We made it past like the top 100, and then we made it past the top 40. Then we made it past the top 25. Then we get to the final, like the top 10. And I started realizing, like, through my research, and I was finding people like Steve Jobs and Henry Ford and Walt Disney, all the people, right? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, is this real? Like, is this really happening? And am I about to be successful with the big idea, the next innovation, the industry disruptor thing for one of the largest beverage companies in the world, the largest beverage company in the world? Is that about to happen? And if that does happen, I've got to start talking about some of my cognitive differences and my strengths. I've got to talk about this. So I made like this personal commitment to myself, and sure enough, we made it to the final four. And the contest was cool. It was set up like Shark Tank style. So we had to present our idea to the executive board, and the executive board or the executive leadership team were the Sharks. We presented our idea, and we won. We got awarded, and the award meant we get to we get all the tools, all the budget, all the resources to bring our project to life. And that was in 2019. And I've been working that project. I have samples of that project in my pantry right now. So I can't tell you any more about it because it's kind of a big deal. But it's happening. So it was not just concept idea, like the rocket ship made it to right. I mean, this thing's happening. And it's really exciting. But the next day, after that award, I'd made this commitment to myself. So the next day I told my boss, I was like, I got to talk to you. And she was like, all right, what do you want to talk about? Get in her office. And man, it was horrible for her. I'm sure it was extremely uncomfortable for me. It was very emotional. But I said, I got to tell you about my secret. I'm tired of hiding. And I told her one thing or two things. She said at the end of the conversation, she said, what is your intent in this? I said, well, I need two things. She said, what? I said, I need help. And I don't know what accommodations are, but I've heard there's things that can help me. And I want to help people like me. So I want permission to advocate. And on behalf of, to be able to do this and say Coca-Cola and be able to do this, and it's different than just saying I'm Cameron. And to be able to say I won this contest is different than just saying I'm Cameron, right? So, but I wanted a stamp of approval. So we started talking about those things, and they were extremely supportive. And over the last couple of years, things have changed a lot. I've been able to lead some programs internally at Coke with our D&I team to help with our inclusion networks for people with disability. There's a lot of change going on right now. There was an internal video that was just done that I wish I could share with you, but I can't. But when I talk about neurodiversity and I talk about the strategic strengths of having that cognitive difference in the room, that went out in the entire company worldwide, which is great. But it's an internal campaign right now that I called Going Early. And the concept of go early for me is still one that I believe in this too, that a lot of successful dyslexics that I found in my research talked about it at the end of their careers, or that it was talked about, like Woodruff, the historian, after his death, or Steve Jobs didn't really talk about it during his professional career, but afterwards folks talked about it, things like that. And I kind of challenged myself. I said, I'm going early. Like if I want to, if I want to be a part of change, I can't not sit back. I can't sit back and like have the secret and say, well, one day there'll be this reveal, or one day I'll talk about it at retirement, or somebody will read it in my eulogy and work in the background. I'm not helping that kid that's in a classroom right now by being quiet. So I decided go early was the name of the campaign. So that's internally at Coke, but hopefully externally there's going to be some things manifest from that. Coke signed with an organization called the 500, which was founded in the UK, I believe. But the group's goal was to get 500 of the largest CEOs in the world, largest company CEOs in the world, to put disability inclusion on their executive agenda. And Coke signed that. I'm working with Made by Dyslexia. I talked to Kate last week about getting Coke to partner with them in some way in some corporate campaigns, which I think will be good for associates, but it's going to also be good for dyslexics that are looking for a place to come to work. And if I were to apply for a job today, there's certain criteria, right? And my college degrees will be one of them. I don't have those. I got a high school diploma, and I barely got that, if I'm honest. But through my career, I've learned a ton. So I tell my friends all the time, I got a PhD in the Coca-Cola system. But it doesn't, on paper, doesn't look the same. But we got to figure out how to measure intellect differently, right, internally. So we're working on some of that stuff. And then externally, I'm happy to be able to be a part of a task force with the school board, working with Mike and Helen and Tina and Megan to try to help figure out what this looks like for Georgia. And I'll tell you, I've heard them say it not once, but dozens of times, that they want Georgia to be the flagship. So I think we got some people on board that want to help us. We just got to, I think, help them help us. And how we do that is by stewarding this great information to them. So anyway, I'm gonna pause there, and I'm open for any kind of questions or anything that Tina, Megan, anything I didn't touch on you want me to comment on, I will. But appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and encourage you to keep doing the work that you're doing, because it matters.
I would invite anyone who's interested to ask Cameron questions, particularly about the hard work that it took to climb the corporate ladder at Coca-Cola, because that's an extraordinary story.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, I mean, like, just from what I do, like, behind, other than this, because I do have a whole full-time job in corporate America as well. But everyone's like, what? I don't have a college degree either. I have had to, like, kind of just do all the things and learn it on my own. But I do know in my Fortune 50, I think they're Fortune 50, 100, I don't know, they're up with Coke. But you know, we have a number of market presidents. We have a number of individuals that are like in charge of entire teams, like you're talking about, that are all dyslexic. And you know, I'm actually kind of curious as to how you got that conversation going, because we do have a whole inclusion and diversity department where I work. And I keep trying to have the conversation to get them to kind of step out and to start talking more about it, because I know there are several individuals in that company that don't have college degrees, but they're, you know, they're running the region, or they're running the market, or they're running like high up things. And they'll have these conversations with me casually, because they know that this is what I do, and that my son's dyslexic, and that it runs in my family, and that my mom's been fighting for my sister since like the 80s. So they know that I do it, but I don't have permission to use their name on anything I do. So anything I do, I have to keep my company's name out of my mouth whenever I'm speaking. But I'm just trying to figure out like how like, I know what you've done is possible, but I know it wasn't done without a fight and without grit and without pure tenacity of just like, I'm gonna do this. I don't care if I don't have that piece of paper. I mean, just that's my sister as well. She went through she's in military, she runs her own business. She she left school at 16 years old, rural Georgia, all the things. And my sister is a self-made as well, right? So I guess my bigger question is for you, when I'm working at me, because I have the inclusion and diversity department, I'm trying to figure out how to get them to kind of pivot to kind of like get comfortable in the space to go public with it, because they all cheer me on in the background and they'll give me whatever I want, but they're like, don't say our name. I'm like, but yet you guys are taking what I'm saying and you're actually actively hiring people now based off of their abilities, not their college degrees. So they're actually doing that, and they don't look at college degrees anymore. They don't care. They're looking for experience. They're looking for neurodiversity. They're not looking for the check boxes anymore. They've realized, you know, through trial and error that, yeah, there's a lot out there. There's a giant pool of people out there that can do this, and they don't need to fit those boxes. But I just need that. If you have any suggestions on how I can get them a little bit out of that little quiet zone, so so they'll go forward with it.
Yeah. So the 500 is a neat group. And if you search that group, you'll find some videos. And there's one video in particular that their founder was pretty strategic about, where she talked about a company who turned them down and denied like doing some things on their website to make accommodations for people with visual disabilities. And they were public with saying they didn't want to do that. And that turned into not a good thing for them. But that isn't her message. The message is all the good things, but she does talk about one that didn't make the right decision and decided not to be a part. And so, I mean, that could be encouraging as well. But I mean, inside your D&I group, I mean, culture of a company is culture. And, you know, that's one of the things that you gotta be able to be up front and go early and help create that culture. So I would say don't be discouraged, you know, because if you're doing anything, you're doing more than was done before you started, for sure. And that's going to make a difference for somebody. Right. So continue to do that, continue to create, but your D&I group would be where I would focus. And, you know, as you have different veterans groups and different groups, you know, you could have ours at Coke is called Disability Inclusion Network. And it's small though, and we're a huge company, but the small tells me that not a ton of people are okay, especially with unseen disability, are okay with saying, look at me. So that encouraged me even more to continue to work and create the culture and the environment where people are comfortable. But that also comes with leadership from the top, and with James Quincy signing on, that's our CEO, with him signing that 500 statement, that encourages me too, to know that they want to do it, but they need our help to figure out how.
That's inspiring, but thank you very much though, because it's definitely something that is admirable that you're doing, because it's something that I dream of, and hope that more companies will do that, because it's definitely something that's needed. And the conversations that I have with these people that are higher ups at my company are definitely just like conversations with myself, casual, because we have a connection of my son and his dyslexia. And then they're like, oh yeah, my kid's dyslexic, or oh, I'm dyslexic. I'm like, now things make sense, because like they'll highlight when they read, or they want you to do things a specific way. And I'm like, okay. But it's inspiring to see that you can, you know, and I love the message being able to put out to kids, like you can go this way or you can go all the way to the top. You don't have to just settle, I guess.
That's right. It's that silent moment.
I know, right?
I put in the chat box a link to the Valuable 500. So I'm very curious to see their platform, because one of the things that I've thought about as we go through our work at the state level is there needs to be, or is there's a pressing reason why businesses need to start paying attention to what's going on in our schools regarding reading instruction, because there is already a demographic shift that is in place, and colleges are starting to feel it. In the next 2 to 3 years, there's going to be a real downturn in the number of students who choose to go to college. And frankly, I think it's predicated on their ability to get into college and a willingness to spend the money on an advanced degree, but there are also fewer students. So everybody in this space should be quaking in their boots, because there are not going to be that many more. There just aren't the numbers of people to fill the jobs that exist. And we need these kids to be able to read, and we need these kids to be able to be productive members of their society, without feeding 50% of our kids off to the prison system.
That's right. I don't share a whole lot of that part of my story, but I could have easily been one of those kids.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and it's not hard to imagine. I mean, I have boys, but it's not hard to imagine that kids can easily, because of language-based learning disabilities, wind up in a heap of trouble without even necessarily realizing it.
That's right. Missy, I've seen you come off mute like 4 times. You got something to say?
Well, I mean, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for sharing your story. And it's incredibly powerful. I would love for your story to be bigger. And I know that's your decision, but I just think that it's like, I was so moved because I have a son that has dyslexia, and he has at 10 years old declared he was not going to college. Like that, he's not going to college. He wants to be a pro ball player. So, last night was his dream. And that may work out for him. Statistics say it won't, but I'll do everything I can to help him get there. But at the same time, he's already learned in a supportive home with parents who are getting him tutoring, and he does have a label and he has an IEP, that doesn't appear to be an option. And I love your story because you don't have to have that to be successful. You are an amazing story for that. And then, so I just wish that was a bigger voice. And then B, let's help our kids dream about the biggest things like college and all the things that all the kids get to do, that becomes part of their narrative from an early age. And it starts when they're in preschool and kindergarten, because what we do in those ages determines what they feel about themselves and what they see themselves as in the future. So I just love your story, and I just wish it was bigger and our kids could hear you. They need to hear you. You are an inspiration. I just thought, man, every little boy and girl who struggles with this just needs to know that there is success. Like, you defied all the odds. And Coke's a great place to work. My husband worked there for the first part of our marriage, about 10 years. He was a project manager. And it's hard to work at Coke. So I know, and I know they lay off people like every 5 years, and like, it's like, you've made it through all that. So you definitely are a huge success story, and just dreaming that your story will continue to be bigger and louder and more inspirational. Somehow get it.
I'm in the stage. I'll talk on it.
Okay. I will, like, seriously.
Yeah.
And even like more boards of education to hear your voice, and to really understand what this looks like for little kids in the schools, and how you somehow, wormed your way through, but just so that they can help kids not have to do what you went through when you were in school because of decisions they make now.
That's right. Yeah, no, I agree. And Tina was in the room when I was able to talk to the Board of Education. I was invited to one of their retreats to speak, and that was the first time I'd ever publicly told my story. It was a hard day for me, but a good day. It is getting easier. But to be quite honest, I mean, I think this is probably only the third or fourth time I've talked about it publicly. And I'm okay with doing that wherever it's going to make a difference, and make a difference to these two places: people that are making a decision for change, or kids that are struggling. One of those two places, I'm open to wherever. And like this internal video that Coke did, I was so hoping there was going to be an external version that would go out on LinkedIn and social platforms. Not for me at all, because this is hard for me. But because the message needs to get out there, I know I had a moment that day I heard something positive that I hadn't heard my whole life. And then I knew that evening was I had the most fun researching and finding all the stuff, because looking for information around dyslexia was not something I would have ever done. I hid it and buried it as deep and as far as I could. I did not want anyone to know, and I surely didn't want to be reminded of it. So to go look with something like, to search a dyslexia group on social media, no way. I mean, there ain't no way that would have happened. But now there's so much out there, but I think there's still so many people just like me, and then other kids that had no idea, have no idea. So anyway.
I just want to piggyback real quick on what Missy said and what you were saying, Cam, about speaking to groups. Our kids have so many role models that they hear of that are the names you mentioned earlier, Albert Einstein and Muhammad Ali, and these larger than life figures that are famous, that I think maybe it's wonderful for them to hear about all these incredibly famous celebrity dyslexics, but for them to meet a Cameron Mattingly in their real world. And like, I walked out earlier tonight to get Rike his ice cream, and I was like, this is Mama's friend from Jessup, but and he's a big wig at the Coca-Cola Company, or Coca-Cola, and that means something to him to know that you have dyslexia and that you're thriving, and to see real world role models for them. And so I just wish more people like you were as open as you are about your dyslexia. And I just think it's one baby step at a time, but you doing this means so much, because someone in this group who hears your story, who may have dyslexia themselves as a parent, or as you speak to the board, I know several of the board members came out after that and said, my granddaughter, my, my child, and they started talking about it more openly, because it shouldn't be a dark secret. It shouldn't be something our kids are ashamed of. And I just want to thank you so much for being brave enough to tell your story to all of us and to the boards that you've spoken to, and coming with us to the Skank School to learn more about, when they shared with us that day, and the board members, about everything they're doing about structured literacy. Like, you're making such a huge difference already. And I can't thank you enough on behalf of all of our children.
Well,
Thank you.
Welcome, friend.
Would you be willing to speak at like local school district board meetings?
I would, yeah. Yeah.
Missy and I were both like,
Missy's getting ideas.
Yeah, I have too, because like I grew up in the same district that she's in Gwinnett, South Gwinnett. And as they were speaking at, the prison, pipeline to prison, all that. Most of the people on here know this story, but all my friends in Gwinnett County, most of them were all guys. And I think only 3 of them actually graduated. The rest of them, unfortunately, ended up dead, overdosed, incarcerated, you name it. That has been my life. And not only with my friends, but with my sister. So I've dealt with all the real life statistics. And, it is hard for me to even speak on this right now because it's just such a fresh wound, you know, because I had to tell my best friend, his 21-year-old son, like things that he never even knew, because Gwinnett County is just, to me, it's like if we could crack an egg or just get a big enough crack in Gwinnett County just to like save so many kids, because there are so many kids that people don't know about that are my age that they're gone, and they were bigger than life. They were amazing humans. They were my best friends, and you know, I'm that person that has the friends that slip through the cracks, which is why I fight so hard for my child, and why, you know, as soon as I found out, I'm like, no, we're going. And like I didn't take the brakes off. And I was like, I'm determined, because I know that the statistics that come along with our babies are scarier than the diagnosis itself. And so that was my motivation to keep going. But I keep trying to get Gwinnett County, especially. I gave up on DeKalb County. That's where I came from with my son, but Gwinnett's where I grew up. With Gwinnett County, the numbers that we do know about of children that have gone to alternative schools or have been thrown into literally like a school right next to their prison. And I mean, they go to court next to it. And, you know, these were my friends that this was par for the course in the best school district in the state of Georgia. And, you know, I have a lot of disdain for that, because it's like they broke so many families and they continue to do that. And while I didn't plan on taking on Gwinnett County, now I met Missy randomly, thankfully, you know, through Tina and meeting people in parking lots. Tina's always good at that. You know, she got me back in the Gwinnett County, and it kind of ripped Band-Aids off for me. And it made me remember, you know, why I hightailed it out of Gwinnett County when I was 18. Like I left. I was like, if I don't leave, you know, and a lot of my friends didn't leave. I tried to pull them out with me, and they wouldn't come, and they just got stuck there, and they've never left, and they're not going to, because like I said, they're either dead, incarcerated, or worse. I guess my thing is, like, if we could get you in front of, I do know that they do appreciate Coca-Cola's stance in the community, meaning Gwinnett County. Is, you know, like just having someone like you speak at the board to them as a real person, like Megan's saying, instead of, you know, like when I say a real person, I mean like not an Albert Einstein, not like, you know, the people that all of our kids dream about, right? Like we desperately need somebody in these board meetings at like in Gwinnett or Cobb or Cherry, whatever. Give them a real face and say, look, I work in corporate America, and let me tell you all the ways that you're doing this wrong and how you can make it better. And this is what you can get from your kids, and don't worry about the test scores, but this is what the output would be if you could just, you know, listen to the kids and listen to the parents. We're not asking for much. It's like we're just asking for our kids to be treated humanely, and to not be shoveled off to alternative schools, or to, you know, that's just how it's been for me. And, you know, Gwinnett County just has done a number on a number of people. And I know some mamas in this group that are from Gwinnett, but like, I think starting point board meetings, if you could somehow, I would beg you, like on behalf of so many babies in Gwinnett County that I'm still trying to help right now. And so is Missy, and we're all trying to. Like, they just need to hear from somebody other than us moms, you know, if they had a man come out there and tell them, frankly, like, look, that like this is not just a mom thing. Like, you know, I came up through this as well, and this doesn't have to be this hard. You know, you can make these changes and save these kids' lives. Like, that's just where my heart is with that.
Yeah. And I would say this, that I don't think anybody disagrees with. I think that if, let's say that message had a platform and they listened, right? And this is, Tina, this is where the experts come in, right? Because you have an opportunity then when they say, well, what should we do? When they lean in and say, what should we do, as an organization, you have to be prepared to be able to show them. Like this is where we start. Here's our priorities. This is how we iterate. This is what we need to do. So I would just say do it strategically for that group, and be prepared for them to say what do we do, and then give them whatever that is. Because what I can't do, and this is a part that helps me when I hang out with folks like y'all, is I don't quite understand the right way because I didn't experience the right way. Right now, some of the kids going through some of the things they're going through right now are going to completely understand what the right answer to that would be. But that's where you collaborate, you do things as a team. And as dyslexics, we're really good at building strong teams. I'm aware of the things I cannot do, so I can get them motivated, but somebody else is going to have to train them on how to teach kids how to read, because I can't do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody doesn't have any other questions for Cameron, I want to be mindful of the time that we have laid out, and make a quick pivot to Dyslexia Day, which actually kind of dovetails about, because every year we go to the Capitol, except last year, and we bring the kids out to talk to legislators from across the state. We have been remarkably successful in developing relationships with some of the key leadership in our legislature, precisely because there are families in rural Georgia and parts that people like in the metro area don't necessarily think of unless they happen to have family members in other parts of the state. Metro Atlanta is not Georgia. And like there are legislators who really want to do the right things for their communities. And I'll point to Katie Ruth, who's over to the right of your screen, because she's down in Folkston, Georgia. And she has, over the years, cultivated a wonderful relationship with her representative, whose name is John Corbett. And so as a result, Representative Corbett does a lot of some of the behind the scenes stuff on our behalf, which I think is especially important because it says to the people in the House and the Senate that if John Corbett is down in Folkston in Charlton County and knows about this and is concerned about this, then I need to be concerned in Gwinnett. I need to be concerned in Cobb. I need to be concerned in the city of Atlanta about these issues because they affect everybody in the state. And perhaps people in more rural areas more acutely because the kids don't necessarily know that it's dyslexia causing their difficulties, that their schools are less likely to have the knowledge and resources. And Katie Ruth is a perfect example of taking her superintendent under her wing and saying, we really need to fix this for these kids. And this is what you need to do. These are the people you need to talk to. And let's make some changes on behalf of our children. I'm going to pull up my screen and share with you. I did, let's see, where is it? There. There it is. Okay, can y'all see it? It's a SWOT analysis. Okay, it's not a very big font. Let me see if I can bump up the font a little. Let's see, Control A. Okay, a SWOT is something that my marketing manager or my manager taught me when I worked in marketing years ago. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So right after Dyslexia Day every year, I sit down and talk to the people who helped with it, and we figure out what worked and what doesn't work. This past year, we had really great response to the Dyslexia is My Superpower video that Megan Swingle did for us. And then I want to give also a little shout out to Missy Purcell's office really helped with a legislative video that I recorded. They were able to piece that together for us so that it didn't look like a hack job in my that I recorded on my cell phone in my basement, which is what it was. And we were able to harness the talents of others who stepped up to help. Chris Holcomb did a great job of stitching together all of the individual videos of the kids for the superpower video. We proved that we can pivot to an online forum. We were able to get our swag out to people who were interested in receiving it. Our community partners continue to step up and help us, which is wonderful, because I don't know if everybody is familiar with this. We actually are just a group of parents. We do not operate as a business. We do not have a 501c3 organizational status. And as a result, that allows us to be very intentional about the advocacy work that we do, because if we were a 501c3, we would actually be limited by the rules of a 501c3 and not be as present in places where we are, like State Board of Education meetings. I go as a parent, and there's nothing they can do about that. And they have not told me to leave yet. So I'm, the day someone tells me to go away, I will look at them and say, maybe, I don't know. We need to keep talking. We can ask educational thought leaders to help us, and they will do that for us. The videos that we curated for the event that we did virtually, we had some really great thought leaders making short videos for us on specific topics, and that was wonderful. We can enlist the help of local celebrities to share our message. We were so fortunate to have Brian Jordan join us for a conversation. And fairly recently, we were connected to Read with Malcolm. Malcolm Mitchell played for the Bulldogs, as well as professionally for the New England Patriots. And so he runs a charity himself that is involved in literacy for kids, which is really cool. So we're going to see what we can do to get Malcolm to join us. The media is interested in a happy dyslexia story. We established a YouTube channel, so that can be an ongoing asset. We were able to get folders out to the House and Senate Ed Committee meetings right before Dyslexia Day. I was able to swing down to the Capitol, and I had exactly the right number of folders left over from previous years. And I had my son's school print stuff to put in those folders. Because as you know, color printing is very expensive. So that's one of those things that our community partners are happy to help us with. They just need a little bit of advance notice. We had enough swag available from last year that we didn't have to spend money on more. This is going to be an acquisition year where we're going to need to ask our community partners to step up and consider supporting buying stickers, not the lapel stickers, but the car stickers, and I forget what else. I took an inventory of stuff down in the basement fairly recently. And we also had help updating our website. Weakness, not getting the kids in front of the legislators, especially the new ones, was not possible. Our elected officials work on a 2-year cycle. So regardless of whether you're in the Senate or the House, you are on a 2-year election cycle, which is why all those annoying political ads are about to ramp up again. We aren't sure that legislators took the time to look at the video or read the materials. We need to keep developing relationships with both sides of the legislature. Having new leadership on both sides made things difficult because we did not have I went to Senator Anna Vitarte with Erica Smith after our virtual dyslexia day because there was a resolution read on the Senate floor. and we took the time to introduce ourselves to him. And whereas we had a previous relationship with PK Martin of Gwinnett, who was the Senate Education Chairman for 2 years, we needed to redevelop that relationship because those roles get shifted. They're kind of at the leisure of the lieutenant governor to determine who gets put where. The offer to deliver lunch was cumbersome and expensive. Opportunity, we can plan to produce some digital content that can roll out in conjunction with an in-person event. The pandemic forced us to get really creative about how we were to reach people. We reached people in places we would not have ordinarily reached beyond the metro area, and we need to continue to do that. Not everybody has the opportunity to come from, say, Charlton County to come up to the Capitol. We love it when families do commit to a long day for their families to come, but we also need to think about the opportunity that exists to have something that allows us to connect with people in outlying areas. We have a lot of untapped talent that could help us at other points of the year when we need to keep messaging at a peak. We can think about what swag provides the best bang for the buck. And my big threat was pandemics are problematic for things like an event at the Capitol. That was the biggest bummer, was that it really did force us to turn our event on its head and think differently about it. And that's not a bad thing. It's just, at the time, that was a threat to what we were trying to accomplish. So I'm going to unshare, stop share, and bring it back to, does anyone have any thoughts about how we go about doing Dyslexia Day at the Capitol this year? We will have to have a meeting again about it because there are specific rules that need to take place, but I have asked one of the people who has helped us in the past secure a specific room in the Capitol to have as our meeting space on that day. And the proposed dates are either February 8th or February 15th. The way the legislature works is that they often have committee meetings in the afternoons on Wednesday or Mondays and Wednesdays. So Tuesdays are actually a really good day to get down to the Capitol. And those 2 days are early enough that there's not evidence that I've come up with that suggests that major school districts are out of school, which we don't want because people do take off in February to go to Florida to go visit grandparents, or they go somewhere cold so they can go skiing. And the private schools also do not have that break. And the school that my son goes to, Howard, has been, that last year they were very gracious in providing a video, but in previous years they've brought a group of high schoolers to discuss dyslexia with legislators. And so that's been a very powerful thing for them to do because they're talking about civics in their government class. And so it's a really cool educational opportunity for schools to bring groups of selected students to participate in the day.
Can we bring kids this year if they're vaccinated?
I believe so. I don't see any prohibition if the families are comfortable allowing their children to come to the Capitol. I have not heard of any prohibition to that effect. Now, I don't know the dates, but they're about to go into a special session.
Oh, but
I don't know whether it started yet, but I think
Yeah,
it's okay. I don't know what the protocol is going to be down at the Capitol in February. So that's one of those big open-ended questions that we don't really know the answer to yet, but I want to get on the calendar, because if we don't, like, I normally will get on the calendar right around this time of year, because as soon as the legislature opens, everybody else has made their plans and we don't get our seat at the table. So we kind of have to get a jump on it.
Public districts aren't really doing a lot of breaks this year. Like the
Right. I noticed Cobb, where I'm located, is they're not taking their break until like February 23rd or something.
That's how most of them are. They bumped out their winter or their, I don't even know what kind of break it's called, because it's right after Christmas break or winter break. A lot of them dropped it. So I know DeKalb will still be in school. They only have like 2 days off.
Okay.
And it's just coinciding with professional development. So it's not really a break at all. So the teachers will be in, but that's only like 2 days, like a Friday and a Monday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quick, Tina, quick thought, sort of an action item to come. As soon as we have the date and we start promoting for people to join us there, I think we should have some sort of form that people can fill out, like an Eventbrite. This, obviously, we always do that. It says you're going to come, but in our auto response, let's include a link to help them find their state legislator representatives in the Senate and the House, and also give them some talking points or a form letter, or everyone can make it as personal as they want, but we can at least give them a few of the key details that they should include. Like, this is the date we'll be there. I am in your district. I hope you will take the time to join us. Here's when and where you can engage with us and my child. My lovely, beautiful boy or girl wants to meet you, and here's their smiling face. So please don't disappoint my child or me, the voting representative. Anyways, just thoughts for what we can do to help activate grassroots wise, getting in the ears of these representatives really early with our date, and that we want them to be there.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea.
A form letter would be great, because last year when we were doing the calls, I was like, what should I be saying? What's the most effective really was what I wanted to be effective, and I didn't feel like I was being as effective. So I think that would be great, just to give everybody the words and the stories.
Yeah,
Our kids' faces and stories are really important. They bring a human side to this conversation that's not just about numbers, it's about kids.
Right.
Now, Lisa, where are you based?
So I'm in Gwinnett County.
Okay.
So Missy and I are friends now. And I was going to offer to help with that. I write for a living. So
yay.
I'm happy to help draft letters or talking points or web content or whatever we need for that. So
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
sure.
Hey, Tina, because I know that these people at the Capitol have shiny object syndrome like a mofo during the session. And I'm sure Cameron will back you with this too when it comes to people in high up positions. Having a talking point, right? If it's got a whole bunch of stuff on it, it's going to be like, oh, okay. And then like put to the side. Is there a
So
way?
3 talking points.
Well, you know what I mean? Like, is there a way we can have, like, I mean, because I've literally, like, handed you my husband, and he's yours to do whatever you want to, graphic design or whatever you need. Is there, he's so mad at me, but he's like, whatever, Tina makes me bagels. So what could I get my husband to do where we could just, like, get, like, with his design and then get Lisa to do
An infographic would be amazing, Lauren.
An infographic would be phenomenal.
Yeah,
And
that's
we
what I'm
can
trying
help
to think of.
Tina and I, and we can help provide like the key points of information that we would like incorporated, like the most compelling statistics, the we can help with those. And then if he can help and you can help us visualize that with graphics and such, like a 1-page infographic would be amazing.
It would be huge. When I sat down with the superintendent at Gwinnett County a couple of weeks ago, they started queuing in immensely when I started throwing out statistics, like the number of kids that have dyslexia and like what that really breaks down even in our county, like that equals this many kids in our county. And like how like they were like, repeat that. And they were writing it down on their notepads. And so things like that get decision makers' attention because that's quantifiable. And it's actually, that equals like money, it equals points, it equals the decisions, or that those things begin to flow from there. So I think that would be really great. And that's also like a good thing to help us even advocate, even our own districts, giving us the words and the powers, things to focus on.
No, the statistics are like, that's the grabbing thing, right? Like, but so my thing is, don't just put the friendly ones on there, because these people need to actually see the other statistics too. Sorry, it's the hill I'm going to die on. Just because I know the realities of it. So I just like want them to see, hey, here's a one pager, here's an infographic. We can talk about here's the statistics of what's going on in your communities that you could potentially prevent. And furthermore, your schools will look way better. Because if you support this, then you're supporting this, and then those things go up, and then guess what? You won't have all these kids in special education, and so your climate score for your school will go up. So that's like how that whole mentality works. It's like you just kind of have to build it up on their ego. Or I hate saying that, but it's like what I do all day with CEOs and stuff. It's like you gotta like build up on that, but like. You know, it does the climate scores, the amount of children inside special education in per school drives the climate scores, drives the real estate market, all of that's how it all entangles with each other. So if we start like nailing them with those numbers, like this, that grabs their attention because that's money. Sorry, but if they like our kids' faces and they're so cute and sweet, show them. This all adds up to this. So if you help down here, then we can get all the way up here, and it's going to make everything a lot, I guess, more efficient.
No, I agree, Lauren. It has to be the data that they care about, not the data that we care about.
Yeah.
It's like it's got to drive their narrative. It's got to give them a talking point, even though we could just talk to them all day long. It's got to catch their attention and be like, oh, really? So.
Agreed.
So someone who's been very quiet, who's taking notes, is Nicole Vela. And I don't know if you all have met Nicole, but she is the head of training for REAP, which is Reading is Essential for All People. But she's also the president of the Reading League Georgia branch. Branch chapter, tell us.
Well, I think officially it's a chapter.
Okay.
So the Reading League is a national organization that in 2019 kind of decided, hey, we could spread out, and it's really the Reading League, and they really mean it. It's like a league of people from all over the world at this point who have come together, and the mission is to bring evidence into practice. So we find in the world of reading, there's a big divide between what research says and what is actually happening in classrooms. And we're just trying to bridge that. We are trying to help teachers who have their hands full up to here every day, try to help bring what 40 years of science has said works into the classroom. So that's one of the many hats I wear and I love.
Well, you guys put on a really good virtual conference, by the way.
That was a great virtual conference. Yes, that was a really good one. The Reading League, I'm very pleased. They do really good work, and we're actually working on several events here in Georgia with our Georgia chapter. So we're doing that as well.
Can you bring my buddy Steve Dykstra down?
He is a hoot, I have to say. It's funny because Wisconsin has a lot of, those folks duke it out up there. I mean, they've got Dykstra, they've got Seidenberg. I mean, they're all, woo, it's a mess. Kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, we finally got Steve on my personal page to admit that trauma can be induced inside school with dyslexic children. It took about like 7 of us piling on top of him, and he was like, okay, fine. I was like, thank you. But I adore him because he thinks outside of the box, and he doesn't just go with the flow. He doesn't just go with what everybody says. He's like, no, I'm going to challenge that. So
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
I adore him for that, his debate skills, because he just won't back off until he thinks he's won. So there's that too.
Well, I have to say, I really appreciate being here tonight. Like, this is my first meeting with Decoding Dyslexia, and it's a very humbling, I think, for me to listen to y'all. I feel like I move fast. Like, I'm always, as Tina will say, like traveling at 500 miles an hour, trying to make a difference for students. And I forget on the other side of the equation, the emotion that goes with this. And I'm going to say hell-bent. I apologize if I'm offending anyone, but on really making a difference, particularly in public school for students. And I do that with my colleagues at REAP through professional development mostly, and it's in-service teachers. We do work with some pre-service teachers right now at Georgia State, Georgia College and State University, and I'm working with grad students at Mount St. Joseph University as a supervisor in a clinical practicum there. And so we feel like we're pushing in, and I forget, like, I'm so like hyper focused on getting good instruction in the hands of people who will make a difference for kids. I forget about the emotional side, and tonight has taken me aback. I'm going to have to really think about all this, and it's good for me to see. And I guess what I would say, or what I was thinking, and as you all were talking, is, I guess, don't forget, teachers have no ill intent for the most part. Yes, there are, just like the population is the population. There are a certain percentage of people in the population are horrid people and want to do harm, but that's not why people go into teaching. And these school boards, they don't have information. It's kind of like drawing blood from a stone. People don't want to do harm. People don't want to see people not learn to read. I think if I can, I guess, share what I see in the field, is that generally it is a lack of knowledge. That is the root cause. It is not that teachers are lazy any more than it is that students are lazy, and that's why they fail to read. That is not the problem. The problem is there is a lack of knowledge, and it's twofold. It's at the university level, and it is in the classrooms right now. And that is like eating an elephant. This is not a quick fix. It's not, hey, we'll buy a new curriculum. Hey, we'll make some legislation around it. I'm telling you, just any element of teaching reading is very complex, and it takes a lot of knowledge. And that's what keeps me up at night. I mean, that haunts me, because it's, it is eating an elephant. And this, you guys have just given me a whole new, I guess, refresh on some things that maybe I've been ignoring about the passion there, and what it feels like to be a parent or a person struggling or had struggled, and watching the people you love struggle. And so I will take that with me moving forward. So I appreciate it.
What we
Thanks.
like to do, and Missy's a former teacher, so I always give my shout out to Missy being a former teacher, because she was brought up to do all the things you just said in her college. And then when it came to her son, she found out real quick it was done the wrong way. And I always get emotional watching her, because she's over there like she's my big old crier, but she's the biggest fighter you'll ever meet. And, I had to fight for her baby, and we've all had to fight for our kids. A lot of us have. A lot of us still fight this fight for public school to make it better because we want to make it better. I mean, I'm 42 and nothing's changed in my life. My sister is dyslexic. It goes back 80 years in my family. Nothing's changed. And I just want kids to be able to have dreams bigger than I want to learn how to spell. And that was my son's dream that was his goal in first grade. And, same with Missy and a lot of our kids. But we don't think teachers are ill will. We know that there's a gigantic gap that needs to be filled.
That reminds me of, Tina, the meeting we were in when they talked about the circle of forgiveness that has to come with this message. It was a brilliant analogy to a medical procedure that younger med students were learning, and it was so much better for the patient, such a shorter recovery time, less intrusive. But the older doctors who hadn't learned it wouldn't accept that. And they kept saying there were all these problems with it because they didn't know how to do it. And they were too embarrassed to know that they didn't know how to do it. So they were sticking to their old school ways until they approached it differently. And they said, wait a minute, you guys wouldn't ever know how to do this because you weren't taught. And then everybody kind of came together and started using the new procedure because they all knew that it was best, but there was forgiveness in the delivery of that message.
Right.
So just to kind of add to that conversation, little background, I'm all the way down in the dip at the bottom of the state in the middle of nowhere. Professionally, I'm a high school math teacher, but my 11-year-old son, 6th grader, has dyslexia. And I was able to convince my superintendent for them to pay for my very small school system. We have about 1,400 kids total. For me to start the dyslexia endorsement. So I'm in the throes of that through Middle Georgia RESA because that is the closest place for me to, take it, or easiest, But with that said, to kind of echo what's being said, there are 50 people in that cohort. Not one of them, the science of reading, all of these things we're talking about is new information. And these are people that are instructional coaches and reading specialists and principals and all of these people. And they don't know. They genuinely don't know, And so I think, there is a knowledge gap, and that at its core is what we're facing, and like someone said, we're trying to eat a little bit of the elephant at the time. That is what it is, but I do think moving forward, all of this federal money that we have coming in with the LG4 grant, all of that is a really good opportunity to do things the right way, and put our efforts into the training with all of this money that's just sitting there for school systems and all this COVID money that's come in and all of that. I mean, we're talking millions and millions of dollars to, funnel school systems into doing training the right way. So.
Well, I want to point out just quickly, because I want to be mindful of everybody's time. REAP has done training down in Jones County, and Nicole, you said the cohort is 70 teachers, 70 in-service teachers in Jones County?
I think it is. I'm not off the top of my head. I can't remember the numbers, but yeah, it's pretty high. It's multiple schools.
Yeah, and they do, REAP does a pre-test for teachers to get an idea of what kind of knowledge they have coming into the class. And the Jones County teachers often left sections untouched of their pre-tests because that isn't knowledge that they have, and therefore knowledge they're not sharing with their students.
Yeah, and the pre-test that we do is really heavily based on Motz's work. So it's really foundational reading skill. It's the goods you need to know to be able to teach word reading to kids. And they just don't know, like, at all how to do that. So, yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. I'll put together a summary of the notes, and I'll send it out to everybody who joined Eventbrite email list so that everybody has an idea. And I'll put together a meeting to discuss. I need to get the date nailed down, but we do need to discuss sort of one of the steps that need to happen for Dyslexia Day. And then I also forgot to put in my little notes on December 3rd, we are going to host Elazar Gray and Ebony Martin of Absolute Literacy, or excuse me, Absolute Language and Literacy Tutoring Service. They're going to talk about the struggle with getting help for your child on December 3rd. So I'm hoping that people will tune in to hear what they have to say. I ran into them at the Dyslexia Dash and asked them to think about putting together a presentation. And I had met them last year at an event that Erica Smith put together with, oh, why am I zoning? I'm so tired. I worked 16 hours at the poll yesterday. So if you all have your Braves hangover, I have my voter hangover. So, so I'm going to say peace out because I'm so tired I can't remember people's names. And we'll touch base with everybody soon. Thank you again for coming.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks, Tina.